This season has officially become something that no one anticipated thanks to Angel Reese. Every time someone believes they understand her, she does something that makes everyone in the basketball world reconsider. Ree has been hard to miss, from the drama to the numbers, the confidence, and those moments that somehow make headlines before the game even ends. Here's the actual query, though. What's going on with Angel Reese this season? And why does it seem like we're witnessing something entirely different? A video of Angel Reese trying a no-look pass that finds nothing but hardwood is currently circulating on social media. You chose the wrong video if you clicked on this wanting to see another highlight clip centered around her turnovers. Because what occurs on the court has nothing to do with the funniest section of that video. Everything that is going on around it is the funniest part. Because you'll notice something that the highlight reel conveniently omits if you pause that clip and take a moment to examine the seats rather than the scoreboard, looking past the athletes. In a facility that isn't even big enough to require so many rows in the first place, row after row of them sit vacant. That venue is the Gateway Center venue in College Park, Georgia, home of the Atlanta Dream. It can accommodate about 3,500 basketball players, making it the smallest arena in the WNBA and smaller than many high school gymnasiums around the nation. A significant portion of those 3,500 seats were empty from tip-off until the final buzzer on the night the Dream faced the Phoenix Mercury this past week. With the exception of one feature that makes it more fun, it by itself would be a forgettable footnote hidden inside a mediocre regular season game. Both the league and the team have made a special effort to force Angel Reese to sell out buildings for the majority of this year. Since Atlanta declared back in the spring that all of its season ticket memberships for the year were sold out, that assertion did not come out of thin air. For a team that has played for the most of the past 20 years in front of a few thousand friends and relatives dispersed throughout a largely empty arena, this is a true milestone. Therefore, it is worthwhile to pose a straightforward but uncomfortable question when a television camera pans across a stadium that has been officially sold out since spring and finds hundreds of blue seats empty. Why does Angel Reese need an opponent to show up before that building appears to be full if she is the real reason fans are watching women's basketball this season? The Dream played a very different type of home game just 2 nights prior to that poorly attended Mercury game, and the contrast is almost comical, making the question much more difficult to answer. The much larger State Farm Arena downtown, where the Hawks typically play, hosted the reigning champion Las Vegas Aces on August 3rd. Additionally, the announced attendance exceeded 17,000 spectators. For a regular season women's basketball game, especially one that the Dream ultimately lost by more than 20 points in front of all those spectators, that is an incredibly high number. What really filled those 17,000 seats had nothing to do with a highlight play or a jump shot and everything to do with a doll. The event, dubbed Barbie Dream Night, was centered around the release of a real Barbie with the Angel Reese brand, which Mattel had unveiled at All-Star Weekend a few weeks prior. Atlanta threw it with full theatrical flair downtown. Fans could get their hair done for the event at the Glitter Bar in the concourse. Fans arrived in tutus, magenta jerseys, and glittering boots as if they were going to a movie premiere instead of a basketball game, and the arena lighting turned pink for the evening. Broadcast cameras lingered on spectators holding the doll for nearly as long as they did on anything happening on the court beneath them. The doll may have had a better night than the squad bearing her name on their chests by the time the final buzzer sounded during a 22-point defeat. That evening was a complete success when viewed only as a marketing event. A doll selling out an NBA-sized arena in a non-basketball market is a truly outstanding business, according to one version of this tale. However, the same cameras that captured 17,000 people dressed entirely in pink for a doll release found a noticeably thinner crowd 48 hours later once the towels, the glam bar, and the visiting champions had all left. This makes the evidence that Angel Reese is carrying the WNBA on her own much more dubious. Playing regular season basketball in their actual building was merely a fantasy. Reese has spent years creating a version of stardom that is based as much on goods, moments, and personality as it is on box scores, so none of this is completely new to him. Additionally, there is nothing intrinsically wrong with an athlete who is so familiar with her own brand. When a brand is drawn into a dispute that it was never truly designed to win, problems begin. And that debate has been given a very specific moniker this year. The issue of who is truly worthy of being referred to as the WNBA's face. Reese has repeatedly stated that she thinks the title is hers, and this summer she was given two very different reasons to discuss it in public. The first was the actual Barbie release, which she has characterized as evidence that years of developing an identity outside of basketball had finally paid off. The second reason was much less flattering. Despite having a compelling statistical case, Reese was left out of the starting lineup and was the only Atlanta player chosen when All-Star reserves were announced. This argument has continued even after All-Star Weekend, and it becomes more heated each time someone displays a box score rather than a highlight reel. Reese is a two-time All-Star who has led the league in rebounds in every season she has played. Thus, her case is strong and deserving of being stated clearly. Almost no one in WNBA history has ever accomplished this. The argument against her is equally strong. Built on a half-court offensive game that even her supporters acknowledge is still a work in progress. A turnover rate that skyrocketed into a truly concerning area during the first several weeks of her season, and shooting percentages that still lag far behind most starting forwards. Reese is either a marketing phenomenon whose true on-court value is greatly exaggerated by individuals who have never watched a full 40 minutes of Dream basketball, or he is one of the most prolific young players the sport has ever produced, depending on which side of the debate you stray into. Furthermore, both of those groups are operating from actual data, which is an uncomfortable reality. Simply put, they are picking which ones to highlight. Whether Ree is the league's biggest attraction or just its loudest drama, there is an underlying tension that stems from the transaction that initially sent her to Atlanta. At one point, I told a reporter that if the organization didn't make a change, she might have to think about going in a new direction. And the Sky was more than eager to let her depart in exchange for future draft capital, buried in a losing record and a locker room that appeared worn out by its own drama. It appeared to be exactly the kind of move that Chicago supporters could be proud of. An opportunity to move past a gifted but volatile situation while accumulating resources for the franchise's desperately needed rebuild. It also helped that Chicago's own season gave fans very little reason to question the choice because, regardless of the players on the roster, the team spent the summer buried near the bottom of the standings. This made it simple to frame the trade as addition by subtraction rather than a talent the front office just gave away for a portion of this season. Red appeared to be entirely accurate. Throughout the first several weeks of the season, Ree accumulated turnovers and shot far below her typical percentages. In June, however, the Dream themselves lost 5 straight games and plummeted to 7th place in the standings. A lopsided transaction has become more akin to a coin flip because of Atlanta's summer slump. And for a few weeks, Chicago seemed to have won the deal just by holding out. Then Atlanta got it out, almost on cue. After the Dream's major rebounding partner recovered from injury, Ree relaxed into a more comfortable role. Her rebounding and scoring totals reached all-time highs, and Atlanta put together enough victories to return to the playoffs. Exactly the kind of scenario that prevents the argument about the worst trade in team history from being as neat as it might appear on a thumbnail. Ree herself has thrown herself into that story of redemption, telling reporters that this is the most liberated she has been in 3 years and giving thanks to the Atlanta locker room culture for relieving her of a burden that Chicago was never able to. When a player on a team vying for a playoff spot puts up all-star numbers, it is really hard to argue with them. Fair reporting on this trade must simultaneously acknowledge both of those facts, the difficult beginning and the current uptick, without acting as though one totally negates the other. Perhaps the honest conclusion in this case is not that the deal was a historic catastrophe. Perhaps it's not because Ree has silently deteriorated as a basketball player compared to the youngster who used to lead the league in rebounds. Perhaps the true story is that the modern WNBA has developed a whole economy based on the notion that attention inevitably translates into value. Furthermore, Angel Reese has emerged as the most obvious living illustration of what occurs when the math is off. She can sell a doll more quickly than Mattel can replenish its inventory. Additionally, she doesn't need much effort to transform a typical Monday night downtown into a sold-out sea of pink. On a quiet Wednesday, when there are no towels being waved, no glitter bar on the concourse, and no cameras searching for anything other than the basketball game itself, nobody around her has yet worked out how to turn any of that enthusiasm into a building that truly looks packed. Until that happens, someone will aim a camera at the vacant blue seats behind the basket whenever the league declares one of her home games to be a sellout, and the image will make the case. Since a doll, a rivalry, or a themed night with pink illumination and a glitter bar can sell 17,000 tickets practically on demand, attention itself has become simple to create. Additionally, such calculation includes actual money. It is a much more difficult and time-consuming task to turn that same attention into a fan following that shows up for the basketball itself on a random Wednesday without any gimmicks attached. And no one in Angel Reese's immediate vicinity has yet to crack it. It's still unclear whether she will be remembered as the player who unintentionally revealed the issue or as the one who ultimately found a solution. But it's a question worth keeping a careful eye on since the outcome reveals more about the league she insists she plays in than it does about her. It's